from the heart of rural France. This is the Keto Woman podcast, brought to you by me. Hello Keto lovelies, I'm Daisy Brackenhall, and I've spent most of my life struggling with my weight and confidence, and have always had a difficult relationship with food. Even when I finally got to my target weight, after weight loss surgery and eating low carb, I couldn't maintain it and I was miserable. I've been keto now for over 2 years, and it has given me the freedom to fall in love with food again, without the constant gain, loss, guilt, virtue cycle of before. Health and happiness is where it's at now, running on fat. Welcome to the Keto Woman podcast. Each week I'll be chatting to inspirational women, maybe even the odd man, to discover the secrets to their success so that I can share them with you. So what is keto? Keto is a way of eating that enables you to switch your body's main fuel source from sugar to fat. Who doesn't want to be a fat burner, right? But how do we achieve this? A great place to start is by keeping carbs under 20 grams a day. So things like leafy greens and above ground vegetables, plus some nuts and seeds and the incidental carbs you find in things like full fat dairy. Choose delicious fatty proteins and be free and easy with oily dressings on salad and butter on your veggies. Once you're in the swing of things, you can tweak it to suit you. Make your own personalized keto. You'll hear all sorts of ways to keto from my guests. There is no one way to do keto, no one size fits all. I hope to show you just how flexible and fabulous this way of eating can be. I'm not a doctor, and most of my guests won't be either, so we really can't give you medical advice. It's always best to consult your own doctor when making big changes to your diet and lifestyle, because they know you and your medical history, and so have access to the bigger picture. Wouldn't it be helpful to have one place where you could find all the links? Want to sign up to my new Patreon exclusive Facebook group, Daisy's Lovelies? No problem. How about subscribing to my YouTube channel? Please help me notch up my first 1,000 subscribers by going to links.ketowomanpodcast.com and following the YouTube link. Not following me on Instagram yet? Hit the Instagram button. You get the idea. All the buttons, all the links you need are at links.ketowomanpodcast.com. Welcome to episode number 155, where I am joined by another extraordinary Lipoedema lady, Kathy Dwulit. Kathy lives in Centereach, New York, with her 2 children and her husband of 38 years. She started the Lipoedema Simplified Masterclass in May 2019 as a stage 4 Lipolymphedema patient with a myriad of comorbidities. She had a heart attack 10 years ago, which caused her to retire from nursing, and along with a pulmonary emboli and thyroid issues, she was also noticing that her mobility was beginning to get worse over time. She was about to turn 60, which was significant to her because her mother had died at age 62, and she really didn't want to repeat that history for her daughters. She remembered how prematurely losing her mother affected her, and if there was a chance that she could get healthier, she wanted to take it. She also wanted to avoid a wheelchair, so she made the decision to faithfully follow all the coach's suggestions and teachings. She began her keto lifestyle, and immediately the pain disappeared from her usually painful lipedema legs. By the end of the 6-month masterclass, she had lost 50 pounds and was able to join a health gym at the suggestion of her coach Megan Pfeffer. By 2020, she had decreased her medications from 16 to just 6. Her mobility had improved significantly, and she was walking independently without a cane. Inspired by the vision of Catherine Seo and the team at Lipoedema Simplified, Kathy is determined to give back to the community who has given her so much. She is now the Vice President of the Lipoedema Project, and she has completed the professional training from the Noakes Foundation in low-carbohydrate, high-fat, ketogenic nutrition and treatment. She is now also a mentor with Lipoedema Simplified and hopes to soon become a coach working with stage 3 and 4 lipedema women. As always, it was wonderful to hear from another lippy lady, as they like to be called. I actually have to include myself in that group now. I don't have an official diagnosis, but I know I'm one of the gang. If you think you might be, do check out the resources in the show notes, because there is enough there and more for you to figure out whether this is something you should take to your doctor. I hope you enjoy this week's episode. Welcome, Kathy, to the Keto Woman podcast. How are you doing today?
Very good, Daisy. How are you?
I'm good. We were just having a chat before we started. It's very typically British to discuss the weather, and it's pouring with rain here. But I gather you've got a much nicer day, so I'm a little bit envious.
Yes, I don't blame you. I don't like rain either.
No, I'd say it's very autumnal. Usually the autumn or fall for Americans is lovely here. September is my favourite month, but this second part of September here is just sort of turning out to be very wet and miserable. So I'm not overly impressed with that.
Well, when I was there and when I was 16, it was raining, if I remember correctly myself. And I think I was there in the fall. But got a little lost there, but it was okay.
So that's you spent time in France, did you? What was that for?
Well, I came with my brother and sister at the time, and I think they were trying to give me a gift of some sort because they were 11 years older than me, so it was kind of fun. But we enjoyed ourselves. It was nice. My sister loved museums, so we went all over the place, and my brother was just there for I guess comic relief, but we were having fun. They supposedly all took French, and they talked me into it later on, and but it was nice. It was nice.
Oh, how interesting!
Yeah.
So tell me a bit about you, your story.
Well, I'm blessed really because I found the master class with the Lipoedema Simplified in May of 2019, and at the time, I said, what the heck, because I was turning 60. And to be honest with you, my mother had died when she was 62. So when you're going near 60, you're seeing that little planet there. And I had a lot of medical issues. I had a heart attack when I was 50. I had pulmonary emboli. Obviously, I had lipedema. I finally kind of got a word. It used to be called my mother's legs. I had my mother's legs, really, for a long time because I kept arguing with the doctor what it was. And it was the least of, when you go into the doctor and you've had a heart attack, it's like the first thing they're looking at, obviously. So they're not looking at the legs. And ironically, that's probably why I gained as much weight, because when I hit menopause, which is very, very similar to a lot of people, when we go through our hormonal changes, our weight goes up. Of course, this lottery moment when I understood all of that was when I took the master class, because my whole life became understood, it's a gift. It really is a gift. It's just that I learned so much in that year and a half, and I started at 321 pounds. I am 4 pounds away from making 100.
Wow.
Yeah. When I would go to the doctor, and I did have a dietitian prior to, I know you interviewed Megan Pfeffer, but she's helped me incredibly much. But when I go to the other dietitian, she was very helpful, but of course it was the wrong diet. It was the wrong way of eating, and we lost. I was 340. I went down to 321 about then. And I finally had, because she's run with a doctor that was the only doctor that really listened, and I was struggling. But I was, it helped, but not quite. And then all of a sudden, when I started in May, I was to the point where I had to use a walker sometimes. I wasn't able to go to a vacation or anything with my children, which, my husband had to go on vacation with them, and it was kind of sad after a while. I think I mentioned my cat before, but, we spent a lot of time together, me and the dog and the cat, and it kind of was not as fun, obviously. When you have a 23-year-old and a 19-year-old, you want to be able to spend time with them on fun occasions.
Yeah.
And they had seen me struggle with my medical issues. So it was kind of like the youngest had just started college, and I had gotten money when my aunt died. So I made an investment myself, and that's how I came to doing the masterclass with Catherine So and everything. It was like the first month, the first thing I noticed, it wasn't any weight loss really. And it wasn't that I wasn't losing weight, but I wasn't noticing that. It was the loss of pain. it was like immediate. It was like all of a sudden, I could do things that were just tremendous, which I never thought of. I made a deliberate action because it became a little simpler and I don't know why. I think it's the message I was ready to receive the message, so to speak. They say 20 grams of carbs, which is very low when you think about it. And I live with the family that my children are Chinese because we adopted from China. So they're very thin. They're very, and they can eat things that I can't really. And my husband likes his carbs too. So, that's the case. But I decided that, okay, this is my chance to do something. So let's do it the right way. And that's what I did. So the first month, as I said, I lost the pain, and my dietitian noticed a little bit, the one that I had been going to, I still do. And then in July, which was my 60th birthday party, I think me and Megan connected, so to speak, because she helped me find a keto cheesecake for my birthday.
Nice.
And I remember I remember my children made it for me. They were very happy, and
can't go wrong with cheesecake, really, can you?
No, not really.
And it's one of those. Some things translate well, to being keto-fied, and others not so much. But cheesecake, I think, is one of those things that actually it's very difficult to tell the difference. It translates that well, doesn't it?
Exactly. And watching my children do it for me was just wonderful. And it was a special 60th, and it just made me happy inside. And I think that's also when Megan and I started working together, because I have issues with my stomach. I have I've had small intestine bowel overgrowth for 5 years. So that kind of interferes with a lot of the things I'm allowed to eat. So she helped me, get around everything and be able to stay on keto because it started working. I mean, even in July and August, I think I had gotten down 35 pounds, which is like I had worked with the other dietitian. I don't mean to laugh at it, but I think I was working with her for 4 years and 2 months. I had lost the same amount of weight. Mm-hmm. And then by September, my labs came back from, because they do all the labs, and all of a sudden the labs started getting better, because I was, of course, pre-diabetic. I was taking 16 medications.
Wow.
Yeah, I was doing really all sorts of things, and by that time, Megan was helping me, because she's very, very specific. She goes through all the labs and everything. And they started going down a little, and I was, as I said, pre-diabetic. I mean, at one point, like 4 months before I started the masterclass, I was 6.4 A1C, and right now I'm 5.5. So,
gosh, big change.
Yeah, and so one is I'm no longer considered pre-diabetic. I kind of walked right into that. So, I mean, there's so many wonderful changes, and as I said, I'm really, really lucky and blessed to know these people, and that's why I'm trying to give back as well. So by September, that was we were almost close to 3 months into the masterclass, and 35 pounds. And I was doing it with Dwulit because she was in my class as well. And we kind of sort of competed now because that was sort of our thing. And we'd kind of kid each other to get us through it. And that's another thing. I mean, with the masterclass, I've met so many wonderful people. I'm learning so much from all of them. Leslie Keith, I read her book, and I'm like, and because of my medical background, I could understand it. I mean, others would watch the videos. I was never as, I've seen a lot of them, but I haven't done as many because I'm lazy. And some of it I understand already because, nurses can be very judgmental, I guess. But I started understanding it, and it was like, everything started going, yeah, I get this. And this scary thing, what I learned about carbs, that, they told us to eat certain carbs all these years, and it was the wrong thing to do. And I started going, Megan's thing is always question what you're reading, make sure you're looking. Her favorite thing to me is always read your ingredients, which I'm not very good at. I'll admit that. So by, I think it was by October or November, Megan says to me, you're doing pretty well with the keto. Why don't you take a walk? Because I really wasn't exercising. Wasn't really doing that at all. So my neighbors got to see me for the first time in a while. And I was like really proud. I made it to the end of the block. This was before COVID, when this is a new thing. But so I walked down to the block, came back, and was a little tired. And for like a month or so, I did that regularly to make myself be more active. And quite frankly, after like 10 years of sitting, because there was really nothing a lot of the doctors would say, because when I got the pulmonary embolism, they were just hoping I'd survive. And I was trying to survive in a way, and I was trying to be in my children's lives. I was a PTA president, but that didn't go as well because, I got a scholarship for them, but they were a little embarrassed by my legs, so we kind of stopped that, and there was a little shame going on, and I withdrew. But it was wanting to make a difference, but I was always trying to do that, really. After the month of walking down the street and sort of doing that, Megan suggested I find a physiotherapist. Now, in reality, this is where Australian and American kind of run right into it. I didn't realize that a physiotherapist was really a physical therapist here. So I went looking for a physiotherapist. Well, luckily for me, there is a physiotherapist here in Long Island, and he happens to work down the street. He's got it all over the Long Island. And I joined his health gym, which is a really positive thing because during COVID, I've been able to go there because it's a health gym.
Oh, right. Mm-hmm.
And my first go into that was that the first test they did, they had to work on my cardiac, obviously. And by 2 months later, I had improved my cardiac output by 200%.
Wow.
And then actually the other day, they did a surprise test. I felt like I was in high school again. But anyway, I had double and tripled that. So now I'm going to be doing more exercises at the gym. Not that I'm really happy about that, but I kind of killed it.
So that's really important then. Because how long ago was it you had your heart attack?
10 years ago.
So that must be very reassuring if you can see such fantastic progress with strengthening your heart, basically.
Yeah, well, that's a lot of my blood work. A lot of my things have come down tremendously. Not only they talk about, non-scale victories. I think the biggest one that I showed Megan was I really just discovered it because I decided to unclutter my life, sort of. I went through my pills that I had to take because my blood pressure started going down, so we had to change my blood pressure. I got off of Coumadin because my weight went down enough so I could take Xarelto. And there were so many changes that were happening to my body, so when I hit February or so, I looked at all the meds that I had gotten rid of, like the inhaler and all this other stuff. I was down from 16 to 6 medicines at one point, which, given all my history, it was amazing. And even I'd go into the doctors now and I forget what I look like comparatively because, with COVID, you don't see them that often. And even with people now that I haven't seen because I had to go to one of my friends had died because of COVID. So they had the memorial in, just in August, and they hadn't seen me either. So it was they're wow, because there's half of me and a third anyway, but it's kind of fun that way, but I don't recognize it as much, but I feel so much better. And it's all due to keto. I mean, it's really sticking to this way of life, as I think Megan usually says something about let the food be good to you or something. I know I just messed that up, but that's okay. She'll forgive me.
Yeah, I think it's either eat or love food. Eat food that loves you back, I think.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Yes, thank you for getting me, because she would not forgive me for that. But yeah, because even though I've had struggles finding it, I do realize that, it's amusing because I've lost my Italian heritage because I can't eat the tomato sauce because of the nightshades and a few other things, and pasta, of course, is out. But the Irish seem to have come back. They've made a big comeback because I like Kerrygold butter and things like that. So my mother's probably very happy in heaven because she's probably looking at going, see, I told you, much better than that pasta. But I'm enjoying the food that I get to eat. I, like you guys, I think, eat eggs in the morning. I'm getting used to that. I mean, I think that was one of my first complaints. I don't like eggs, but I've learned to love eggs, and I've learned to make them. I'm not the cook. I'm not the person you call for recipes. I mean, my children, thank God, have learned well to make their own food because I'm just not that person. But I'm learning because in a way you find what you like to eat and you find ways to, eat it. You don't, when I used to call for dinner, everyone would get in the car because we'd be going someplace. I just enjoy it. That's all. I just enjoy the food that I'm beginning to eat, like the beef, the butter, and finding different ways. And, we're working to get me through. I'm trying not to have small bowel next year. So we're working to get that where my intestine gets better. I think it's from the leaky gut that sometimes we get. And I've been blessed to have it, but, we work with it.
Yes, tell us a little bit more about that. I mean, is it one of these things that has a standard range of symptoms and a standard range of foods that don't suit you, or is it very individual?
I'm like the poster child for food intolerance right now, but the first thing we discovered is nightshades, because I can't have paprika. And who knew that mayonnaise is in paprika, but there is.
No, paprika's in a lot of things, isn't
which
it?
you don't recognize
Surprising.
at all.
Yeah.
You don't recognize it at all. And eggplant parmesan was my go-to. And I swear, I think we had it at our wedding. I mean, I married 38 years, so I've had it for I was, enjoying it. And even Megan had found a tomato sauce, which is and it's great and it's wonderful and I really enjoy it. But the eggplant is a little iffy with me. It's because it's a nightshade. But it's also because I crave it. You talk about cravings. I crave it. So rather than have something that substitutes, like it's similar to the idea of don't substitute with like sorbitol or any of the sugars, it's the same idea. But going back to the nightshades, yes. Nightshades, I think, is mostly because some of us lipedema people have issues with nightshades, which are eggplants, which are peppers, certain peppers and certain things. And so that's been an issue for me because I have the small intestine bowel overgrowth, which for the last 5 years, sometimes FODMAPs, which a whole different little animal, they're fermentable, carbs that I can't have. And learning what I can and can't has been a difficult mission, but I'm learning, because we started out with the masterclass to do it on chronometer, which is putting everything we eat so we'd find little picadillos that I couldn't eat. And we've been slowly but surely getting through them all. And that's I encourage people, if they're starting out on keto, to start just putting down what you're eating, because not only does it tell you what carbs you're eating and fat and protein, it kind of gets you a gauge. So if you do have an issue like I did, because mine was I just had a stomach that it would go right through me, then we'd find what's going on. Why is this bothering me? Oh, and this works really well, and my blood levels are coming down and everything else. I mean, it's not always that way, but sometimes when your stomach is healing, you just have to be nice with it, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. So what does your keto look like? Relatively simple, I should think. You need to keep
right
things
now
quite simple.
It's pretty darn simple, but when things are going really well, I've gotten to making eggs. I do all sorts of things with beef. We've brought back lamb in my family because my mother-in-law never liked it. And she threatened one time not to come for Easter because I was threatening to make the lamb, which I would have never done. So her son never liked lamb, but my children like it. So we've brought it back and I've been enjoying that. I use Diet Doctor a lot. I try to find things that will go with my stomach and, and I check sometimes with Megan, this look right? Should I try that? I like the cheeses when I'm allowed to have them. And of course I like the cream in my, that's my, thing, coffee, because that's become my treat, because I'm afraid to do I did the cheesecake for my birthday and a few other things on different days, but I'm afraid to go to the too sweet things because I'm afraid what I would do with it, and I guess I'm looking at my positive things about not having it. So far I've been pretty good with that, except I did start the pumpkin soup when my stomach was going off, and that is sweet. And that has more carbs than I expected. But
yes, it's incredible. Different varieties seem to vary hugely. And I've grown a couple of varieties in my garden, and one of those, they're different kinds of squash, but one of those is far sweeter than the other. And then you can have between the same variety, different plants. One that's ripened a bit longer, say, will taste considerably different as well. So there's a huge amount of variation. And sometimes, like you say, sometimes they're really sweet. Luckily, the ones I've grown are not very sweet. So I'm pleased about that.
Yeah, I can imagine. I need those. Maybe I'll have to get the girls to make, because we do grow things back here. Most of them are herbs, because Long Island soil is not the greatest, but sometimes we get tomatoes, but of course I can't eat them, but they enjoy them a lot for their salads and such. So I'm trying to pretty much give back to everybody, because it's really a miracle, because comparatively to what I was doing, I'm walking more, I see people more, I'm trying to help others. Like, I used my RN degree to try to take the Noakes I did actually, and I did succeed. I finished the course. I'm trying to give back to the lovely ladies that are in Lipoedema tribe, and I've gotten to talk to a lot of them. And at stage 4, because I really went through it, my legs were really, really swollen, and I see the struggles they've had. I mean, I've always, even when I was, after my heart attack, I was just learning what lipedema was, and I'd just go on Facebook and look for people. I mean, I was trolling this poor woman in, I think, Britain, who was some kind of council person, I guess. And I knew when she took her mother to the hospital, to the doctor, because I really wanted to know all about lipedema. And so there was not very much information back in 10 years ago. And, I sort of did Catherine So is, you've obviously talked to her. She's just a wonderful woman that has brought so much to the community, and she works so tirelessly. So having met her, and like you talk to her and you just feel like, what can I do? How can I help? And that's what I've been trying to listen to her dream and see what we can do. I'm actually now the vice president of the Lipoedema project. I'm trying to give back to what this has been done for the community, because the stage 3 and 4 people kind of have been given a little shaft by the medical community, because they really didn't know what it was when they grew up with it, which happened to me. So when the things happened to their bodies, they couldn't do anything about it. And I'm trying to encourage, I understand when you've given up a little bit and you feel like things are impossible, because actually I'm the keeper of nothing is impossible, because we have this pig, it's a flying pig, and its motto is, nothing is impossible. Her name is Emmy Milagro Esperanza, which is what we named her, and her motto is nothing is impossible. And I kind of work with Gail to do with the community to make little things for Emmy to say and do, and just reminding people that really nothing is impossible. And given my story, really nothing's impossible. And the ones that are stage 4 sometimes feel that way, because that I can identify with. And Catherine has said that I could work with some people that may feel that way, and maybe I can help them, which would be a dream for me, because, after 10 years of saying you can't be a nurse anymore, because I was a registered nurse for 23 years, and and pretty much being told I couldn't do anything, I really want to give back to them.
Well, to regain your mobility must have been a huge step.
It's super because I can spend time with my children. Like I said, I went to a wake for I've lost like 8 people because I'm a nurse to the COVID situation. So there was like 5 of them were nurses, but our best friend had his memorial finally in August, and I was able to walk because we had to walk and let go of a balloon into the park in New York. And I would have never been able to do that. There's no way in the world. And the fact that I could honor him and be there with my children and my husband, whose best friend it was, it meant everything to me. It really did. And things like that I can do. And maybe I have no control in life, but hopefully I'll outlive my mother. I know my sister has, so we're in good stead. I mean, I lost my brother when he was 46, but I'm still hoping. Because the Irish side did live to 90. So,
there you go then.
So there is hope there. There is hope. But even if I spend a little time because it wasn't fun when my mother had gone, when I got my children, to do that alone I had my mother-in-law, I had the other side of the family, but you feel alone when that time happens. And when they put my daughter in my arms in China the first time, and my other daughter, she was totally different because I have 2 children totally different. One was like, and the other one was, you miss that in your life. And to spend some time with them, as I grow older will be wonderful. And that's the biggest gift. That's why I want to give it back, because it is really special and it's really, meant a lot to me. And to get to know everyone in the Lipoedema Simplified and the Lipoedema Project, there's so many wonderful women. We all have different strengths and gifts to give. And even the people in the tribe, they've all lived like these long, wonderful lives. I mean, even the ones that I know beforehand when I was just looking up lipedema, this one woman who wants no part of like losing weight or anything like that, and she's a wonderful woman, but I spent the whole 10 years learning about her music career, and I was following her because she now had to retire because she wasn't able to do it because the lipedema gets bad. I mean, those people saved my life in a way, even though they don't know it. We're all a community, even though this country happens to be having a little issue with all that. We are a global community, and it's just wonderful. It really is.
And I imagine also once things have momentum, so once you start gaining your mobility back, just the fact that you can move around helps feed into that. And as you've shown with going to this health gym and improving the strength of your heart, it all has momentum and it all builds on itself, doesn't it?
Yes,
so,
it does.
When you feel, because as you've mentioned, there are the stages of lipedema, and it's a progressive disease that gets worse and worse, but it is possible to pull it back somewhat. You can't get rid of it completely, but you can pull it back and I guess arrest the development as well.
And that's what the wonderful miracle of keto is. Because, all of us have tried diets, mostly calorie restricted and things like that. And we used to say, I can't do it. I because I was working nights, it was really difficult. I'd go to the Weight Watchers meetings. Everyone would be applauding as everybody lost a certain amount of weight. But I was never that person. And I watched my mother do the same 50 years ago. She'd go to the same meetings. Everybody would be applauding, but it was really, really hard to do. And keto it's like, I don't hate to say it's a no-brainer, but it does help with the inflammation in your legs and things like that, which you don't, as I said, I didn't recognize it when I was losing it. But the pain was going away and the inflammation. And that's the hope that a lot of lipedema people are discovering if they're looking. And this is the hope that if the doctors get the idea, hey, keto's not so bad. And the idea, especially because I was a heart patient, they said no fat. Well, no fat isn't really true. It's the carbs. It's the metabolic syndrome that's causing you have atherosclerosis. It's those things that are the problem. But we were told, don't have, and it started, I guess, in the 70s, don't have high fat. Well, it's helping. It helps the brain, too. I noticed, when I was 60, my brain cells were deteriorating down. I've noticed now that I have more energy, that my brain is a little bit better and more functioning, so to speak. And I think that's helped a lot, too. Keto's, I know how many people you've interviewed, but keto is really a wonder thing. And it's, in a way, a wonder drug for people that can really benefit from it, like people like me that need the inflammation to go down. And my legs, they're not wonderful. I'm never going to be back in the 70s, we had to wear mini skirts and midi skirts, which, the middies helped a little bit, but I'm not going to have a great leg, but they're getting me around. I'm very proud of them in that respect. I think that's something we need to stress and tell people in all sorts of lives.
Yes, it feels like the biggest thing, the thing that will have the biggest impact on lipedema to me seems to be diet. I know there are other things that you can do to help, especially depending what stage you're at. And I was a bit curious as to that. What of the other things that help with lipedema do you do and that you found success with? Well,
let's see. Megan's got me through this, so she's the one I have to give credit to. But exercise, obviously, that has helped tremendous because it's gotten me. I don't have that little kind of shuffle as much as I used to. So that's helped. She's a big stressor of getting enough sleep. That one is my current bugaboo, so to speak. I started a digital. She won't talk to me after 10 o'clock now. My time, not her time, because that would be different. Because she expects me to try to. Most people should be off their digital things by 10 o'clock. So I've tried to start that. I started this week because that's her current challenge. I try to take challenges and she challenges me, and that's why she's my coach. But that does help, I have to admit, because not only do I remember to put the sleep apnea machine on, which has been my issue, but it also, I do feel like right now I'm awake, whereas I fell asleep during the Marvel movie, so that will tell you, back when. And that's another thing that changed. My sleep apnea, I was BiPAP, my levels were 15 and 23, which was really high. And now I'm a little APAP, which is 18, which is phenomenal in a way. So I've been doing the sleep. I do meditation with, we call it a candle ceremony. When we're adopting our children, you had to wait like a year and a half with China, so you had to wait. So we always have a little candle out, and we'd have a nice little ceremony. And my first daughter, Elizabeth, had this wonderful little candle, and it would go on, and it still to this day lives, so to speak. But Catherine's candle is my youngest, and she's like go-getter. She's really kind of that type of person. Anyway, that candle would go out every candle ceremony, and we should have known. It was like a little feisty little candle. So when we first met, and she was like, every time I sat down, she would get crazy. So we should have known. Megan suggested when I was talking about doing some meditation to bring the candle ceremony back. And now it's really kind of nice because my children and my husband and me are doing it. So it's like taking time out from a week. It's, they're all here because they're all working or going to school at our house. So it's a nice time to spend time being quiet, so to speak, but enjoying it. And I think that's helped immensely. The master class also gave you ideas of what to do, and the Heart of Releasing was part of the course where you release, your thoughts and your feelings, how your feelings are motivating, being motivated by your thoughts and by letting go. It helps. So I learned that technique. There's other techniques that other people have done. They've done tapping and a few other things. I think that all of it helps. Obviously, you can see that I took the master class pretty seriously. I learned, I was using any penny I paid for there, but I was determined to learn anything they were teaching me. And it was worth every minute of it. It really been giving me benefits that I'll be grateful for the rest of my life for.
Do you use any of the other things like compression and some of the massage and things like that?
Yeah, I did compression. I did this before the master class. We started doing it, and that's the other thing that, when your doctor says you have I obviously had lymphedema, but the thing with lipedema is it doesn't really go down as much. You'd see all these lymphedema people going out and their legs would go down, but lipedema, and it does help because it helps with the pain, it helps decompress, but it doesn't go down as much, and it is helpful. So in the beginning I was using that, but I wasn't getting very far, and plus the fact, like my hospital, I'd done it for like 10 years prior, or 7 years anyway, and it was considered maintenance. I would pay out of pocket and do that. And then they said, well, we're not going to do that anymore. So I had to find someplace else. So it gets a little more expensive. I always had the FlexiTouch, which is like a compression similar to Lymphopress, which is like a pump and does what MLD does in a way with the machine. But the problem with FlexiTouch sometimes is you have to have someone help you with it because it's really kind of hard to do. Right. And, the guilt in the 10 years that I was feeling that I'd have to get my husband to help me with that too, given all the things that I had. It took me a while to realize that, they want to help you. So I did start doing that with the master class. We got the vibration plate. And of course I always had a swimming pool in my backyard. And that helps the most.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's really handy.
That was one investment I made after I stopped nursing. I used some of my money for that because it was great for the kids, but it was also really, to be honest with you, mostly for me in that respect.
And do you use it during the winter? Even better.
It would be if New York didn't have this dumb snow that it tends to have. And, actually, it was very sad. I had to close it last week. It was because it was and we put a heater in. We didn't even spend the money for the heater. And it was I could go in and be like a polar bear, those little crazy people that I know.
I was going to say, that's good for you. You should do that. The cold therapy is supposed to be very, very good. It's actually a lot easier if you keep going. I did it. It's fine me saying that. I'm a bit of a wimp when it comes to cold water too. But one year I really got into swimming in a lake that's nearby here. And I started swimming in the summer when it was lovely and warm. And I kept going. I didn't manage to. My plan was to try and swim all the way through the winter, and I didn't manage it because I stopped for too long, and then it's too much to get back in. But what I found is because the temperature obviously gradually dropped week on week on week, and I think the last time I swam was about the middle of November, and it had just gone under 10 degrees. It was about 8 degrees Celsius. I'm not sure what that is in Fahrenheit, but pretty cold.
Okay, that is.
And people would be out there walking their dogs with all bundled up in their coats and scarves and things, and then get the shock of their lives to see this crazy English woman swimming in the freezing cold lake. But, it's definitely good if you can do it. It's very invigorating. I have to say, it's one of those things it's very difficult to get in. But when you get out, you feel $1 million.
Yeah, well, I'll give you that. I'll even give you that as a thing, because I have friends who've done it. They do that every year here, the polar bear thing, and I give them credit. Some of them are young. I don't know if I could do that yet.
But apparently it's particularly good, that cold water treatment for lipedema. So perhaps that, maybe not this winter. Maybe you should build up to it next winter and just keep going in as the temperature drops. That might be the motivation for you. That might be the next step you want to check. You say you like a challenge.
Okay, well, I'll mention that to Megan. But I don't know. I think I'll go to Australia, go swimming over there because it'll be easier.
Certainly a bit warmer. How do you find the vibration plate? I got one a couple of weeks ago, and I have to say, I quite like it. And it feels like it's doing something. I find that it also, actually, it's helped my back a lot. I used to have quite a lot of lower back pain.
Yeah.
And to start with, it's one of those things, I think, with a lot of these things that you do, it sort of feels a bit sore to start with in the places that you struggle with. Yeah. But then it's obviously strengthening it, because it certainly has helped me a lot. Yeah.
Nabulsa's better at it than I am. I give her credit for that, because she does all sorts of funky things, because, and she says I'm a wimp sometimes, but I've done it. I'm getting used to it more. I want to try the rebounder yet, but I haven't done that one yet. I like it because it does it's sort of a different thing to do than the Flexi Touch one day. Like, if you're just not in the mood to spend an hour and a half. I've done a lot of reading in my Flexi Touch. I've done a lot of audiobooks in my Flexi Touch. But my girls like it too, because they do some music with it and listen to it that way.
Yeah, and I only go on mine for about 10 minutes, but 15, put an audiobook on, 10 minutes goes past in no time.
That I can do. Nabulsa likes to tell me I should go longer and further. That's really, but I do 15 minutes with not a problem. And I think it does help. It gets the lymphatic system moving, and
it's got to, really, when you think about it. You're standing on there and you look down and everything's jiggling around all over the place, so it's got to be doing something.
Yes, it's definitely doing it. And plus the fact, they gave me a diuretic, and I at first thought it was for my heart, because it's the same time as my heart attack. Well, they were really doing it for my legs, because my legs were the way. So we discovered that this year, so I was told I could come off of it. That's one of the medicines I lost. But they wanted to make sure I didn't gain anything, so I was doing everything, because the diuretic is one thing. It also, like at night, you'd have to go pee, and it was just annoying. And it really doesn't help lipedema patients, because what it's doing, or lymphedema patients, because it's pulling the fluid up, and then it goes right back down again. And
makes sense.
The lymph products down there are pulling them back, so you're actually making it worse. So I did all that. I've been using the vibration plate. I've been using the Flexi Touch just to make sure I didn't have to take the diuretics. So that was, let's see, I was 250. I was told if I got to 258, I would have to go back to the diuretic, and I was determined not to do that. So now I'm almost, it's hard to say, but 225, 4 pounds away. And it's amazing. And that's another thing, that sometimes when you get success, it just wants, like you say, it motivates you to do more, because you get a little greedy, I suppose, because you want to be able to do things that you weren't able to do for so long. So that's what I'm feeling.
Well, I think it's just really a case of starting to see that things are possible. So you want to keep moving the goalposts, because you're so used to your expectations being very low.
Right.
And as soon as something happens to change that, you start realizing you can push a little bit further, and then that means you can push a little bit further. So you just keep pushing those goalposts a bit further away, which is a good thing.
It's a great one.
I think we should always be changing things up and trying to move forwards. Stagnation is not a good thing.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm hoping to help with the stage 3 and 4 people that start giving up on thinking they can. Even a little change is a wonderful change.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it just, if I can inspire that, because it really, I know how it felt not being able to do things. I really understand it. I even understand why they believe that that's the case. But it's just so wonderful to be able to do things again and want to share it. It makes me happy inside, to be honest with you. And it's a good feeling. And, I'm really trying to give Catherine her vision that she has for everybody in lipedema, to help everyone, because you talk to her and you know that that's where her heart is, and you want to be able to do that and help. We had to do a virtual symposium this year because we couldn't obviously get together in North Carolina in November. We're just hoping that the message, because we're going to have a bunch of nice, good people like Bickman and Westman and a few other people that are coming in to talk, and we're just hoping that people get inspired to do some of the things that make their lives better. It's really just important to do that.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's the thing, isn't it? When you sort of resign yourself to the fact that things are going in one direction and that direction's not very good, and especially if that's supported by the medical establishment who are just telling you this is progressive, there's nothing much you can do about it, to get that little chink of hope, that little bit of light coming in, and you start realizing that you can do something again. That's huge. And I think it's quite good this year, actually, that with a lot of live events not being able to happen in person, I think it's the moving it to an online format. Yeah. The result of that, the knock-on effect of that, hopefully, is that more people are being able to access it, which is a good thing. It's a positive thing to come out of it.
Yeah, the invisible people that wouldn't necessarily be able to actually travel. Yes, I agree.
Because it's fabulous to meet in person, and there's nothing quite like it. Right. There's nothing quite like that face-to-face event where you're getting to chat to everyone in person. But, of course, the beauty of it being online is that anyone, anywhere, pretty much will be able to access it and benefit from it. And that's fantastic, especially with something like lipedema. I mean, I've said it before. It's one of the reasons why I like to have you lot, as I like to call you, on the podcast, because it is something that more people need to know about, more people need to be aware of. And there's so much. We were chatting before we started about how much self-diagnosis goes on. I was telling you that, I'm 99.9% sure that I have lipedema. I haven't had it officially diagnosed. My doctor didn't really know what I was talking about when I mentioned it to him, kept trying to correct me. Surely you mean lymphedema? No, I mean lipedema. No, surely you mean lymphedema? No.
Well, usually when you get lipedema, if they actually say lipedema, they say, oh, you mean the cholesterol in your blood or the fat in your blood. They never quite get it. Believe me, I've actually, when I got to meet Catherine before this COVID thing, I had gone down there. We had something special to do. Anyway, so on the plane from New York to Boston, this poor guy who was a medical student got me next to them. And I ended up telling him all about lipedema and how he should learn it before he, in his medical cert. By the time we landed, he knew what I was talking about. But, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to teach.
I mean, yes, really, why not? Why could that not be even actually quite a short lecture? Because you're not necessarily saying that all medical professionals need to know everything there is to know about it. Right. All they need to be able to do is to identify it enough to transfer you over to somebody who knows a bit more. And let's face it, it's actually really not very difficult to spot.
No.
Once you know what you're looking for, you start spotting it everywhere.
Exactly.
When I was going to the doctor's appointment the other day, I spotted a woman. I was in the supermarket the other day, I spotted somebody. It's actually very obvious. Okay, maybe not the much earlier stages, is a little bit more tricky. Right. But to be honest,
it's pretty honest.
Every doctor should be able to see a set of lipedema legs and say, hey, did you know you've got lipedema? There's really no excuse for that. It could be, a lecture for a couple of hours that's going to give you that information.
They don't really even talk lymphedema. They really don't in the medical things. Lymphedema is like, my nursing, I think lymphedema or anything was like this one sentence line that I had to take for the RN test, but it's really not taught. And it's really something that is connected to a lot of things, especially now that we know it's hormonal. I mean, when we had fertility issues, if I knew what PCOS was really connected sometimes to people because of our background, I would have. I mean, I love my children and there's nothing else and it was meant to be, but I'm saying at least if I knew that it's a possibility, I could share that with other people. That's why, as I said, that little lottery ticket that came all the way through where I understood my entire life from 13 to now, that it really does make sense. And I could have been a little smarter had I known. Not that I would have been, but I would have liked to have the choices that were better. I mean, yes, I was told to lose weight, but, that's a little harder. And certainly they weren't telling me keto was around, really. And that's not to blame them, but I'm hoping that now in the future that we do know. There's no real, Megan and Leslyn believe in a lot of research. There's not a lot of research about this, but there's anecdotal. I mean, half of lipedema, the people that are doing keto are losing weight a lot easier than they did before.
That's right.
So obviously, keto is a way of finding the inflammation to go down, which is what a lot of people want.
And like you say, the more important side in a lot of ways is the reduction in pain and inflammation. So that's the key element of it, really. And I think the important thing as well is, and like you say, I hear this so much with keto, and I found the same. When you find out about why it works, and it's just those one aha moment after another. Oh, yeah, I get it. I get why it works. It makes sense now. But I think the thing that's really important is that it then lifts the blame, the shame, the guilt that
everything
we as women in general tend to pile on ourselves and have probably been doing for as long as we can remember.
Right.
And to find out about these things and find out that it's not our fault, that this is something that's happening, and actually there's something we can do about it.
And you can see the relief. Like I've been mentoring some of the people in Lipoedema. You can see the relief on people's faces when they realize, hey, no, it wasn't. And I'm sure you could have seen me a year and a half ago to go, oh. So that in itself is worth a lot too, to see that, because it's so gratifying to see the people forgive themselves for something they never did in the first place, and hopefully start seeing things that they can do to even just to decrease their pain, which is, if you're not going to want to go through like 20 carbs, but, lessen your carbs, work with keto a little bit, because, losing the pain is so much worth it. It really, truly is, because lipedema can be really painful. It really can. And even if you're bedridden, I mean, I was close to a wheelchair. I had pictures in a wheelchair, because when we went to, I think it was Disney World or whatever, I had to use a wheelchair. So, you get that close, you want to do better in a way. And if you can't, because like 20% or 30% of people that end up in a wheelchair end up in a nursing home, you really don't want that.
No, that's right. And of course, it's not an all or nothing. I mean, the whole, 20 grams thing is thrown about as a kind of magic number, but it is a case of working in degrees.
Right,
so
exactly.
You say, you will start to be able to alleviate a lot of the symptoms. You might not get all the way there, but just by cutting some of the things out, it's going to help a lot. So it's not a case of you've got to do it this way or not at all. This is not a black and white decision.
Definitely not. I'm not that, no. Because, I'm walking in my family and I'm trying to get my kids to even notice how much sugar they're having. Like it's 150, 170. So just cut it down at least to maybe 100, I know you get away with it because you can. And I used to drink my carbs. So it is like whatever the heck it was.
But it'll catch up with you sometimes.
It does.
Almost
and
always
20, you're not noticing it necessarily. And life goes faster than you think. It really does.
It does. It certainly does. Well, we'll share all the usual links and where people can find information. But is there anywhere in particular that you'd like to send people? I know what you're going to say, but you might as well say it anyway.
Lipoedemasimplified.com.
Of course. But like I say, the links will be in the show notes, so easy for people to find. And I usually put a whole load of resources in there. So Leslyn's book, for example, and links to Catherine's documentary and things. So there are all sorts of things. People can take the quiz.
Yes.
All sorts of things.
We really appreciate that, because it's something that, my heart is there right now. So I appreciate that. I really do.
Well, I appreciate you lot too, and all the fantastic work you do. It really is something, like I say, raising awareness, I think, is the most important thing, so that people can drive their own health.
That's what I wish for everyone.
Yes, hopefully get help from the medical establishment as well, but just start doing that themselves. They don't, don't need to wait for a diagnosis. N=1. Absolutely.
And nothing is impossible.
No, definitely not. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today. Perhaps you could leave us with a top tip.
Advocate for yourself. Be your best friend. Get rid of your critical voice in your head that's saying you're not enough or you didn't do that well enough. Remember that when you need your emotional resilience, you're the one that can get you through anything that you have to go through.
Very true. And I think that will resonate with a lot of people at home. That's what I see a lot in both the keto community and the lipedema community. Mm-hmm. It really is most powerful, I think, when it comes from inside and when it's you who's driving the changes.
Right.
And that's how ultimately, I think, we'll make the biggest change on the medical community as well. So it'll start coming back down the other way.
Yes. They'll be getting on planes and not wanting to talk to anybody.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with me today, Kathy. It's been a great pleasure.
You made it very easy. Thank you. They were right. Have a good day and enjoy. Thank you.
To get the resources and links from this show, please go to ketowomanpodcast.com/episodes. Please share this podcast with as many people as possible by sharing one of my links or just taking a screenshot of an episode that you enjoyed. Reviews really help raise the profile of the podcast, which gets it in front of more people, but also helps me attract a wide variety of guests. So please take a minute to leave a review on whichever podcast app or platform you like to listen on. It doesn't go unnoticed by me, the people who regularly like, share and comment on my posts. Your support really does mean the world to me. Thank you. Are you enjoying this podcast? Help me make more episodes and videos by making a pledge at my Patreon page, patreon.com/KetoWoman, or simply hit the support button on the Keto Woman Podcast website. Don't forget to join in the fun on the Keto Woman Podcast Instagram and Facebook pages, and Daisy_Keto Woman on Twitter. Are you my next extraordinary woman? Maybe you've got an idea for a show, a topic you would like to hear about. Let me know how I can tickle your earbuds by dropping me a line at daisy@ketowomanpodcast.com. This week's end quote is from Guillermo del Toro. The butterfly does not look back upon its caterpillar self either fondly or wistfully. It simply flies on. Bye-bye, Keto Lovelies.